Evan, how is the state of New York now preparing for the Monday deadline when Trump is under orders to come up with that nearly $500 million bond?
Well, Boris, the first action that we've seen taking place is in Westchester County, New York, where the state of New York, the attorney general there, has already entered that judgment, which is one of the initial steps that they have to take should the former president not be able to come up with the bond by that deadline of Monday. You mentioned we're 4 days away from that deadline. And so this is what the state authorities there have now begun doing. They've now entered a judgment in Westchester County, New York. We'll show you just a list of some of the properties that could be at risk for seizure as part of this effort by the New York Attorney General. You see there, Seven Springs that's in Westchester County where that was entered. You see Trump National Golf Club in Briarcliff Manor, New York is also part of that. And this is already, the Attorney General has already entered the judgment in Manhattan, where, of course, Trump Tower, 40 Wall Street, and the Trump International Hotel are all located. We haven't seen any effort by the Attorney General there in New York to enter the judgment in Florida, where, of course, Mar-a-Lago and the Doral Golf Club are both located, Boris. But it gives you an indication of how quickly things could move once the deadline comes on Monday.
Yeah, the pressure is on. And Evan, we just learned that the judge also expanded the role of the monitor that's overseeing the Trump Organization. Tell us about that.
Right. So there's a monitor that is essentially sitting there looking over the shoulder of the running of the Trump Organization. And what the judge has now ordered is for that monitor to become more involved in looking over the shoulder of the Trump team to see what efforts they have made to try to secure these bonds. You of course know that the Trump team says that they've been rejected by 30 different underwriters in trying to produce this nearly $500 million bond. And so now what the judge wants is for the monitor to essentially check the books and to make sure what efforts the Trump team has actually made to secure those bonds and to report back to the judge. Again, the deadline is fast approaching.
Evan Perez, thank you so much for the reporting. The closer that Donald Trump gets to the bond deadline, the more he is lashing out. CNN's Kristen Holmes has the latest on that and another money problem Trump is facing right now with his presidential campaign.
Mr. President! With just 4 days to pay the at least $464 million bond, former President Donald Trump's panic mode does not appear to be easing up. Posting to Truth Social today that the amount ordered by the judge was too high for bonding companies, adding that, quote, putting up money before an appeal is very expensive. With New York Attorney General Letitia James already taking the first steps to seize Trump's assets if he's unable to post bond, Trump has been publicly defiant.
We're fighting it out with them. We have a lot of cash and we have a great company, but they want to take it away, or at least take the cash element away. Billions of dollars in value, billions of dollars in properties, but they'd like to take the cash away so I can't use it on the campaign.
As Trump seeks solutions, his campaign also facing a cash crunch, struggling to chip away at President Joe Biden's significant financial edge. Trump's campaign and joint fundraising committee raised a combined $20.3 million in February, ending the month with $41.9 million in the bank. While an increase from January, the numbers lag behind Biden's, whose political operation raised $53 million last month and ended February with $155 million cash on hand. Meanwhile, with Trump's legal fees still looming over him, his leadership PAC spending more on legal expenses than it took in last month. Biden not only outpacing Trump at the bank, but also on the campaign trail, making an appeal to key voting blocs.
I need you. I need you badly. I need the help. Kamala and I desperately need your help.
While former President Trump has largely stayed behind closed doors since clinching the Republican nomination, swapping rallies for donor meetings and the golf course. Trump has only visited one battleground state since Super Tuesday.
Hello, Georgia. I'm thrilled to be back.
And held a campaign event for his hand-picked Senate candidate in Ohio before the primary in that state. In the same stretch of time, Biden has visited every top battleground state but one.
You're going to be building the future here in Arizona, and Arizona is building the future.
And I am told that Donald Trump is expected back on the campaign trail in just the next 2 weeks. But Boris, Right now, the focus really is how is he going to post this bond? And I am told that he has said in private that he is opposed to anything that would result in him filing for bankruptcy. So at least maybe that rules one thing out.
Yeah, we've been wondering how his court cases are going to affect the campaign. We're sort of watching that unfold right now. Kristen Holmes, thanks so much for the reporting. Let's get some perspective now with CNN political analyst Maggie Haberman. Maggie, thanks so much for being with us. So Trump is lashing out at Letitia James on social media as she's already taking steps to potentially seize his properties in New York. In talking to your sources, how consumed is the former president by this threat to his business empire?
Today we proved that Look, he's very, very concerned about it. It is not the only thing that he talks about, but he does rail about Letitia James in private. He does talk about how unfair he thinks the case is. There's no difference, Boris, between what he's saying publicly and what he's saying privately. The one thing I would say is I know that he is opposed personally to filing for bankruptcy. He was very scarred by the bankruptcies that were filed against his companies in the early 1990s. This one would be personal to him in a different way, but it is not something that has been totally ruled out as a possibility. Now, again, I don't think it's likely. It's something that could hurt him politically in a campaign, but it is not entirely off the table.
We've seen Donald Trump use things that would seemingly totally derail other candidates, other politicians to his advantage. I'm wondering if you see that he might find a potential political benefit to effectively forcing Letitia James to seize his properties.
That's a discussion that's taking place among some of his advisors. I don't think that Donald Trump, left to his own devices, wants someone taking his properties. I just don't, just based on everything that we know about him. But I do think that there are people who are telling him that there could be political advantage to it. And it's not clear to me that they're wrong. I think that, if you have somebody who is running for the Republican presidential nomination, they are a former president and their assets are seized, there are going to be a lot of people who rise against this. Trump has been leaning in very aggressively to the idea that business people in New York are recoiling from this judgment because they fear that it could happen to them. Now, I think he's overstating that, but I think unlike when he says to his supporters at rallies, if they can do this to me, they can do this to you. In the case of something affecting business, I do think that concerns business officials and executives a little bit more than, say, the average voter being worried about being indicted.
That is fascinating. So, Maggie, you just reported that Trump's new shared fundraising agreement with the RNC directs a portion of donations be used to pay his legal bills before any money goes to the party. Actually, just last month, a senior Trump campaign advisor told ABC News that absolutely none of the RNC funds would be used to pay his legal bills. What changed?
So technically that's true, and credit where it's due. The Associated Press had that story before Shane Goldmacher and I did. Technically, it is not going to the Republican National Committee to pay his legal fees, but the way that it works with this joint fundraising agreement that he has signed with the National Party and then with a bunch of state parties, along with his campaign and along with Save America, the political action committee that's been paying for these legal fees, is first a portion goes to the campaign, then $5,000 to Save America, and then after that, money to the Republican National Committee and then the state party committees and so forth. $5,000 is the maximum that can go to Save America, which is at the moment headed to run very low on funds by the end of spring. So technically, it's true. The RNC is not paying his legal bills, but there is a portion of this fundraising that is going to go to Save America, which has been paying his legal bills.
Yeah, so the Biden campaign is having a go at this. They're poking fun at Trump's recent lackluster fundraising numbers. Trump has less than half of the cash on hand as the Biden campaign. And in a statement, they said, quote, if Donald Trump put up these kinds of numbers on The Apprentice, he'd fire himself. They're really trying to get under Trump's skin. I wonder if you think it'll work.
I don't think that writing headlines about The Apprentice is going to be what, sets Donald Trump off. I think the fact that Donald Trump might have his properties taken is probably likelier to get under his skin than in a statement about The Apprentice. I do think that the fundraising disparity is getting pretty wide. And while money differences tend not to matter as much in presidential races, this is a pretty big gap, and we will see how this plays out.
Yeah, Trump is also on the hunt for a new running mate, right? After his falling out with Mike Pence over Pence's decision to certify the results of the 2020 election. You have new reporting about a threat that Trump made to Pence that was reported to the January 6th committee from a valet of Trump's, right? Did the valet put forward anything that contradicts what the committee put forward?
So Luke Broadwater and I obtained a transcript of an interview that this valet gave to the January 6th committee. And just to go back to your point about the VP and Trump looking for a new one, I don't think Mike Pence was especially interested in reviving that role for a third campaign. But there are aspects of the testimony that confirm a fair amount of other pieces of information that the committee obtained. There are aspects that did not, but not that it contradicts it. It's that in some cases that the valet may not have heard it. He says he was not there for the entirety of the conversation that the former president had with the former vice president, but he did say that he heard the former president tell the VP that it would be a political killer to certify the election. And that does not undercut the general thrust of the January 6th committee and its work, so for what it's worth.